Action. It is time to manufacture. Oh, wait, I already did that. Reveal purchases and update resources. After all nations have finished writing their purchases, each nation confirms validity with an opponent by exchanging OMP charts. Then all nations gather units purchased from the storage trays and update their resource charts simultaneously. Transfer new units to industries. Nations in turn order now place units on the world map in a controlling industrial territory, even if embattled. Cap each stack of new units with an industrial token. All units under construction are kept in the same stack regardless of the unit category, land, air, or naval. Limited in count only by the number of smokestacks at the industrial territory, less any bomb tokens on it, as opposed to the usual 8-stack limit. Naval units may only be placed in territories that have a port. An opponent should verify the smokestack limits as the units are placed on the world map. These new units under construction may not be ordered nor attacked, but are prone to strategic bombing raids and being captured. Do not deploy naval units to the sea until Phase 5. Refit and deploy. Chinese mobilization. China must deploy newly purchased infantry immediately in one or more Chinese-controlled territories marked with a mobilization icon. The number of infantry deployed in each territory is limited by its SV. China may only construct artillery at industrial territories, Piping, for instance. Reminder, after completing Phase 7 production, a new round begins. Double-check territory cards as any embattled status may have been missed. This could also affect resource income in Phase 1, direct national income. Victory check. Your alliance has won the war if it has fulfilled the scenario requirements, typically capturing a certain number of capital territories. If both sides meet the victory requirements in the same round, continue the war until it is no longer the case. In the rare case in which all nations have no units on the board, then both sides lose. If a nation has no more units on the world map and is in the gray zone at the end of a round, it is considered collapsed and out of the game. All of its territories are now up for grabs by any nation without any garrison force. If a nation recovers control of a territory belonging to a collapsed ally, it no longer transfers the card, but rather may gain the resource income for itself. Soviet-Japanese Pact. Non-Aggression Pact. The historical 5-year Non-Aggression Pact is active for the global war scenario only. The pact remains in force until either Moscow or Greater Germany is captured, or it is willingly broken by either party. The terms are: Article 1, neither party may enter or pass through territories controlled by the other party. Article 2, an ally of the Soviet Union may not move land or air units from a Soviet-controlled territory into or through a Japanese-controlled territory. An ally of Imperial Japan may not move land or air units from a Japanese-controlled territory into or through a Soviet-controlled territory. For example, the United States may not attack a Japanese-controlled territory from a Soviet-controlled territory. The United States may not attack a Japanese-controlled territory from a Soviet-controlled territory. If either party has orders to enter a sea region or third-party territory that contains units belonging to the other, the two parties may coexist without engaging in any battle or raids against each other. Air units must land in a friendly territory. They do not contribute to pinning each other's units. Both sides must still participate in combat against any other enemy parties if relevant. This may require 2 distinct battles if other parties on both sides are present. For example, if China, Germany, and Japan all have units in Xinjiang and the Soviet Union subsequently moves units there, then there will be 2 battles of 1 versus 2. One will be China and the Soviets versus Germany, and the other will be China versus Germany and Japan. In the order of these battles will be decided by the turn order rank. Article 4. If the pact is in effect, a third-party territory may become controlled by either party while the other party is present. In this case, the non-controlling party must make a choice. Offending units leave in the next round. Soviet and Japanese units won't pin each other, but third-party units will pin if able. Any offending units that have not left by the start of Phase 4 are eliminated and transferred to the casualty list. Break the pact is possible. The pact may be broken by either side at any time except during Phase 6. If the pact is broken, the offending parties receive 6 stress on the morale board. The party breaking the pact receives no medals for capturing territories of the other party. Imperial Japan or Soviet Union for the entire round, but still receives medals for territories captured from other enemy nations. Once broken, the pact remains broken, and there are no further penalties in subsequent rounds. An ally of either Imperial Japan or the Soviet Union may not break the pact without permission from its allied party, in which case the relevant party giving permission takes the penalty, not the ally. For example, the United States may not break the pact without permission from the Soviet Union. If the Soviet Union allows the United States to break the pact, then the Soviet Union takes the penalty. Three types of neutrals. Neutrals do not produce nor contribute directly to resource income. In the global scenario only, certain neutrals displaying a resource icon can trade resources during Phase 7 production. A neutral's defense force listed below and marked on the world map is only activated if invaded, and only once during the entire game. The three types of neutrals are standard neutrals, light gray on the world map. Standard neutrals are aligned to neither alliance initially. If any neutral becomes controlled by a nation, its alignment changes to match its controller's alliance, pro-allied or pro-Axis. New trading restrictions may apply. They are Afghanistan, Angola, Colombia, Ireland, Mongolia, Mozambique, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, and Venezuela. Attacking standard neutrals. Phase 3 movement operations. When units enter a standard neutral for the first time, its status immediately shifts to pro-allied or pro-Axis in opposition to the invader. The nation of the imposing alliance with a landing command nearest to the neutral, use turn order of tide, immediately takes control of it by placing its flag in the neutral territory and claiming the neutral's territory card. Place the neutral's defense force, see above, on the invaded neutral territory without a command token. Place a hotspot marker on the invaded neutral territory to be resolved during Phase 4 combat operations. Note, air units merely pass over neutrals will not trigger an alignment shift nor activate defense forces despite it being an act of aggression. Phase 4 combat operations. Transfer eliminated defense force units to storage rather than the casualty list during the round in which they are activated. During later rounds, surviving units will be under the control of a nation and so will get moved to the casualty list. If the invader has surviving land forces and succeeds in defeating all enemy land units in the neutral, the victorious commander chooses from among its participating allies which nation will place its flag denoting control. Put any surviving defense force units under command tokens belonging to the aligned controlling nation. These units may even move out of the neutral in later rounds as decided by the new controlling player. A garrison force is active if the neutral territory is empty, even in the case without defense force, i.e. e.g. Iceland. Control of the defense force or the territory may not be transferred again among an alliance. Control may still transfer to an enemy as a result of another battle. Phase 5 refit and deploy. If only air units from the neutral's defense force survive the initial invasion, they must land in a friendly territory or be eliminated. Phase 6 morale. The first nation that invaded in the neutral during Phase 3, successfully or not, gains 1 stress the first time only for that neutral. Nations capturing or recapturing a neutral do not receive medals. Production. Members of the corresponding nation's alliance, except China, may potentially trade with a controlled neutral. Pro-allied neutrals, light green on the world map, are sympathetic to the allied forces nations and will not trade with the Axis unless control shifts to the Axis. Allied forces may enter and leave. A defense force does not activate unless invaded by the Axis. Brazil, Central America, Greenland, Iceland, Mexico, West Indies. Pro-Axis neutrals. None at game start. A standard neutral can become controlled by the Axis. Pro-Axis neutrals are indicated by a flag token, will only trade with the Axis until control shifts again due to another invasion. Okay, that is the base game. I am going to read... Okay, let's just read on. The four scenarios listed below each pertain to a specific theater of the Second World War, which allows for a range in the number of players and duration of play. No matter which scenario you choose, the entire Second World War is considered to be going on in every corner of the globe. Some scenarios, war in Europe, war in the Pacific, and Eastern Front, have limited and specific theaters of operation with restrictions on which territories are used. Important: only use the territory cards as prescribed in the scenario when placing units and collecting resources. Unused territories offer no units or resources to the controlling player. In each scenario, all unlisted territories, including neutrals, may not be entered. Trading with neutrals is only permitted in the global war scenario unless otherwise specified. Some players may need to control more than one nation on the same side. Be sure to maintain national integrity. For each nation's ONP chart and resources must be maintained separately. Unless otherwise stated, the Soviet-Japanese Non-Aggression Pact is in effect. Place gold capital stars on the world map to highlight non-standard capital territories, especially during the war in the Pacific scenario. You can read through the 6 and then 5-player game, 4-player combo, 2-player. Scenario conditions. The Axis, Germany, Italy, and Imperial Japan win if they simultaneously control any two of the following capital territories: Great Britain, Moscow, Eastern United States. The Allied forces nations, China, British Commonwealth, Soviet Union, and the United States win if they simultaneously control both Greater Germany and Japan. Use the side of the morale board labeled Global. Territory cards. This scenario uses all of the territory cards, including neutrals. The war in Europe, I'm going to skip down to scenario conditions. The Axis, Germany, and Italy win if they simultaneously control any two of the following capital territories: Great Britain, Moscow, Eastern United States. The Allies, British Commonwealth, Soviet Union, and U.S. win if they control Greater Germany. The British Commonwealth and the United States may each write up to only 6 orders per turn. Use the side of the morale board labeled Europe. Territory cards. Germany and Italy use all their territory cards. The Soviet Union uses all of its territory cards except Soviet Sakhalin. The United States uses only the Eastern United States and Central United States territory cards. All neutrals are in play except for Mongolia and Afghanistan. The British Commonwealth doesn't use quite a few. The war in the Pacific. Victory conditions. Scenario conditions. Imperial Japan wins if it controls at the same time one of the following territories: Eastern Australia or India, and one of the following territories: Hawaii, Alaska, or Western United States. The Allies win if they control Japan. The British Commonwealth and the United States may each write up to only 6 orders per round. Use the side of the morale board labeled Pacific. Imperial Japan uses all of its territory cards. China uses all of its territory cards. The United States uses all of its territory cards except the Eastern United States and its forces in Great Britain. Neutrals in play are Colombia, Central America, Mexico, Mongolia, and Afghanistan. The British Commonwealth uses only the following. You may read them yourself. Eastern Front. Germany wins if it controls Moscow. The Soviet Union wins if Greater Germany is either controlled by the Soviet Union or embattled. If both conditions occur in the same round, then it's a draw. Use the side of the morale board labeled Eastern Front. Only sea zones adjacent to territories in play may be entered, excluding the Pacific Ocean and Mediterranean Sea. Germany always maintains control of the Danish Strait. Neutrals in play are Sweden, Switzerland, and Turkey. The Soviet Union uses all of its territory cards except for Soviet Sakhalin. To represent Germany's two-front war, Germany uses only the following: Greater Germany, Poland, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Belarus, Baltic states, and Finland. Optional rules. The following optional rules may be used if all players agree. For faster game resolution, immediately after Phase 5 Refit and Deploy, repeat Phases 2 through 5 before moving on to Phase 6. This causes a double move and combat situation with reduced income and production. Also, if using this rule, each nation, except China, begins the game with the following units under construction: 1 infantry, 1 artillery, and 1 armor. Place these units under 1 or more industry tokens in industrial territories, observing the SV production limits. If they survive, these units will deploy in the first round during Phase 5 Refit and Deploy. In order to expedite large gains, players may opt to set up a second battle status board. Both sides must agree on a method for determining the order of hotspot resolutions. Ideally, any single player should not be involved in both simultaneous battles. A second set of 10 dice will also likely be required. Production penalties. For each error discovered in the production phase, apply a penalty of 1 less possible written order on that nation's O&P chart for the next round by drawing a slash to the order slot, since verification might occur after having seen another nation's choices. Officer role. Randomly or by consensus, assign 3 general officers the following leadership roles to facilitate and expedite the gameplay: Strategic Planning Officer, Combat Operations, Economic Morale and Production Officer. Officers may delegate sub-roles to others as needed. Strategic Planning Officer. After completing your orders, secure them and announce to all that they have 5 more minutes to complete their orders. Facilitate and establish the round's turn order. Manage the bidding process and verify oil payments for bidding. Oversee command stack movements and verify that they correspond to the written orders. Ensure any orders deemed ambiguous or impossible to perform will not be conducted. Announce cancellation of movement orders and verify that they have been lined out on the nation's O&P chart. Identify active regions and place all required hotspots on the world map. Announce carrier fighter token launches. Combat Operations Officers. Oversee the resolution and status upkeep of hotspot markers. Assist and guide the players through battles. Ensure the battle status board is set up correctly. Ensure that the players have chosen their stances and that force and port advantages are observed. Oversee air battles and surface battle stages. Verify repair payments and port advantage opportunities. Oversee the placement of stress and metal tokens. Oversee the replacement of surviving units to the world map and replacement of eliminated units on the casualty list. Verify that territory cards are exchanged when necessary. Appoint an available player to temporarily take over the COO position when participating in a battle. Oversee Phase 5 Refit and Deploy, ensuring that all air units are properly landed or eliminated and the commands are correctly merged or split. Economic Moral EMPO duties. During Phase 1, direct national income, ensure that each nation's resource track reflects the correct resource count shown on its territory cards. Phase 6, morale, resolve the casualty list and the morale board as well as any homeland status penalties. Phase 7, after completing your purchase, announce to others that there are 5 minutes remaining to complete their purchases. Summary. And I think we're good. So that is the rules read aloud by Crockett 36.